Introduction. There's an idea most people have heard at least once. Whatever you load into your mind before sleep, your thoughts, images, and inner dialogue works very differently than during the day. At night, your brain switches modes. The inner critic quiets down, logic loosens its grip, and the subconscious takes control. More and more evidence suggests this isn't mystical thinking, it's simply how the brain is wired. So the real question becomes, what should you actually do in the evening if you want your dreams to stop being fantasies and start turning into real-life outcomes? No magic, no manifestation rituals, just your brain used the right way. What Nobel Prize winners have in common. Years ago, John Grinder, one of the co-founders of NLP, asked a question most people never stop to ask. Why do some people create discoveries that change history, while others, just as intelligent, never do? In the 1970s, he began studying Nobel Prize winners, not their IQs, but their life patterns. What he found was unexpected. First, every Nobel laureate had a genuinely difficult childhood. Not challenging, not imperfect. Truly difficult. There are no exceptions. Second, and this is the key, they all dreamed in a very specific way. They didn't just imagine success, they mentally lived inside their future. That insight became the foundation of a technique now known as the view from the future. How you imagine yourself changes everything. Most people never think about how they think. But there's a critical difference between imagining yourself from the inside and watching yourself from the outside. When you imagine from the inside, you see your hands, feel your body, experience movement, but you don't see your own face. This is called associated imagery. Back in the 1970s, during US intelligence and military training programs, researchers discovered something remarkable. When a person imagines an action from the inside, the brain sends signals through the same neural pathways as if the action were actually happening. In other words, the brain doesn't clearly distinguish between reality and the vividly imagined experience. Ideomotor response, real science, not motivation talk. Here's a simple example. Imagine mentally lifting a dumbbell with your left arm every day. You don't move it physically, just imagine it vividly. After a month, that arm becomes stronger than the other. It sounds impossible. It isn't. This happens because of the ideomotor response. Blood flow increases, neural connections strengthen, and muscle activation patterns improve even without physical movement. That's why stroke patients are told to mentally move paralyzed limbs. Recovery happens faster. Athletes use this, actors use this, musicians use this. And if you ever skip the gym, your brain still has a workout mode. Why visualizing yourself like a movie doesn't work? Here's where most people go wrong. They imagine themselves from the outside. Like watching a movie. It looks cinematic, inspiring, motivational, but there's a problem. When you imagine yourself as an observer, the motor signal never activates. No neural impulse. No physiological response. No real change. That's why many early visualization programs failed, including some Olympic training experiments in the 1980s. People weren't taught how to imagine correctly. They dreamed beautifully and got nothing from it. The view from the future technique. Here's how it actually works. First, imagine yourself 5 years from now, living the life you truly want. At first, observe it from the outside. Where do you live? What do you do? How do your days look? What kind of relationships do you have? Then comes the critical step. You step into that future version of yourself. You see through their eyes, feel their body, experience their confidence, calm, and clarity. This is a test drive of your future. Why test drives change decisions? Why do car dealerships offer test drives? Because until you sit in the driver's seat, you don't actually know anything. From the outside, every car looks great. From the inside, you immediately know, this is mine, or absolutely not. The same rule applies to your future. Once you experience it from the inside, Your brain stops treating it like fantasy and starts treating it like a real destination. That's when things shift. The core of the technique. From your future self, you turn around and look back at your present self as if they're another person. And you ask, what did I do back then that allowed me to be here now? You begin giving yourself advice from experience, not imagination. Everyone is smart in hindsight. This technique makes you smart in advance. That's what high achievers do differently. The mountain climber metaphor. Imagine a climber who gets to fly over the route by helicopter before the climb. They see every danger, every obstacle, where the rope needs to be longer, and where the path should change. When they return to the ground, they're no longer guessing. That's exactly what this technique does for your life. Why this should be done before sleep. In the evening, the body begins producing melatonin, the hormone that prepares you for sleep. Blood pressure drops, muscles relax, analytical thinking slows down, but imagination becomes stronger. This is the perfect moment to work with future imagery. When this technique is practiced before sleep, the brain continues processing it all night long. What happens while you sleep? During sleep, the brain builds pathways. It searches for resources. It notices opportunities that were previously invisible. There's no need to consciously plan every step. You only need to know where you're going. The brain figures out where to step next. Conclusion. When this technique is practiced just a few evenings a week, changes begin sooner than expected. Decisions shift. Opportunities become clearer. The entire trajectory starts to change without forcing anything. This is how the brain can be trained to work for you instead of against you. Try it. Worst case, you lose 10 minutes before sleep. Best case, you gain a future that actually feels worth stepping into.